All of the other models predict that Obama will get a majority of the vote. The reason is, I think, if you look at what goes into these models, all of the other models are retrospective models. Approval rating and consumer satisfaction. And of course, as I indicated, on purely retrospective grounds, this should be a very strong Democratic year. There's no question about it. Bush's approval ratings are appallingly low. But I don't think voters are purely retrospective. I think if you look at the individual evidence, it's also the case. I mean, these other models basically assume that the candidates don't matter, that nominating Mitt Romney or George Bush again, or a clone of George Bush, would have left the Republicans in the same position as nominating John McCain, and I think that's silly. I think first, open seat elections are in fact different. They're less retrospective. Candidates matter. Even the vice presidential candidates matter. So what happens in the conventions matters, and my forecasting model comes a little bit after the others, takes into account what happens at the conventions when a lot of people do make up their minds about which way they're turning. So how do the polls mesh with this forecast? This is the Gallup poll, the Gallup tracking poll of registered voters from the end of July up through the convention. You can see that in July and August, Obama had a lead. It varied quite a bit, but it was around 48.5%, 49% of the two-party vote. Just before the convention, it sort of closed up a little bit. Before the Democratic convention, it was pretty close to 50-50. Democrats hold their convention, they get a pretty sizable bump from their convention. It pushes the vote to about, for McCain, pushes it down from a little bit over 50 to about 46, a little bit over a 3-point bump, 3.5-point bump. Then the Republicans hold their convention, they get even a bigger bump out of this. And this is the basis for the forecast suggesting that this would be an Obama, or rather a McCain victory. Campaign looked at this point to be on track for a narrow McCain victory. And again, remember, poll leaders after the conventions, 13 out of 15 won their elections. So it looked like that was where we were headed. Then the Wall Street meltdown. I think this is sort of like a meteor hitting the models. I think this is so completely unprecedented. I think it'd be interesting to go back in history to see if there's anything like this that happened after Labor Day that was completely unanticipated. I won't go through all the details here, but September 7th, we had Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac being bailed out, Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, AIG. The president requests a rescue bill. Washington Mutual is seized and sold. The Dow Jones drops 778 points. And today it dropped, another 600 points. So, I mean, we're looking at a September surprise, essentially. So what happened? We were positioned for a McCain, looked like a McCain narrow victory, perhaps, or at least that's the odds were with him, and it's gone steadily downward. None of the models anticipated this or could have foreseen this financial crisis. It all occurred. If you actually go back to the conventions, this didn't even play much of a role in the convention. None of the models could have or could have foreseen the timing of this crisis, and this is also very important. If this crisis had been a month or two later or a month or two earlier, its political implications would have been far different. It's certainly not evident in any of the polls or sort of concern about this, or to the extent it was kind of tempered. The second quarter growth rate that many of us have found to be the most important economic indicator from a historical standpoint, originally it was 1.9%, then the next reading of it was 3.3. Essentially, it was close to average for the second quarter. The mean growth rate is 3.4% in an election year. So it was In elections since 1948, 8 have been better and 7 worse. So this didn't look anything like it was a game changer at all. So this seems to be that rare event whose timing and magnitude and partisan implications make it really an unanticipated game changer. It has changed the course of the campaign, and I think clearly in Senator Obama's favor, and probably will change the results in his favor as well. Finally, one admittedly partisan but factual note. I think there's a terrific irony in this, maybe a sad irony. That is, the candidate who tried to tighten the regulation of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac may lose the election because of their excesses. Now, you can say that this wasn't completely about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but I think at base, they were the enablers here. And while the candidate who employed as high-level advisors 2 of the biggest abusers of this system, Franklin Raines and Jim Johnson, as advisors, they helped to create the mess that now Senator Obama is benefiting from. So that's the end with 26 days to go.
Thank you very much, Jim. That, I'm sure, will stimulate lots of questions and comments. We'll turn to that in a few moments, but first we want to turn to our second speaker, who has a little bit different set of views to take here with regard to some of the issues in the election, particularly regarding foreign policy issues. Our second speaker this evening is Dr. Jim Lindsay. He received his PhD from Yale University, and he currently holds the Tom Slick Chair in International Affairs and is director of the Robert S. Strauss Center for International Security and Law at the University of Texas at Austin. Is that right?
Correct.
Prior to his joining the University of Texas in 2006, Dr. Lindsay held several other prestigious positions. He was vice president in the Morris R. Greenberg Chair at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York City. He was deputy director and senior fellow in foreign policy studies at the Brookings Institution. And in 1996 and 1997, he served on the National Security Council during the Clinton administration. Finally, and importantly, Dr. Lindsay was a professor of political science at the University of Iowa from 1987 to 1999. Dr. Lindsay is a leading authority on American foreign policy making process and the impact of domestic politics on foreign policy. He has written widely on the topic, both for the academic community and for the public at large. His book, America Unbound, The Bush Revolution and Foreign Policy, is widely acclaimed as one of the best analyses and critiques of the current administration's foreign policy. In addition, he has written several books on the role of Congress in foreign policy and on crucial security issues such as national missile defense. Tonight, Dr. Lindsay has agreed to identify and discuss some of the crucial issues in the foreign policy arena for the next administration. Please join me in welcoming Dr. James Lindsay.
I must say the nicest thing about giving talks is you get to listen to other people brag on you. So thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it. I want to compliment Jim Campbell on an excellent presentation. I also want to thank you all for coming here tonight. And if I may, I really want to do a shout out for Jim McCormick, because he is a terrific member of the political science profession. He has been a major contributor, and it's been a pleasure to have him as a friend over these last couple of decades. So can I just get everybody to give some applause for Jim for arranging this? As you might imagine from Jim's introduction, it's a great pleasure for me to be here in Ames, Iowa. Iowa holds a special place in my heart. Not one, not two, not three, but all 4 of my kids were born in the great state of Iowa. And I never really appreciated how great the state of Iowa was until I went to Texas. When I lived in Iowa, I'm a gardener. It's my great passion. Well, Iowa has the best soil in the world. Okay, you can go out and you can work with your hands and you can feel good about yourself. Texas